Hey guys, so I will not be in my practicum until tomorrow, so I did not have the chance to record myself teaching. So I'm just going to do a quick thing today where I'm going to talk about 5 different methods that I've either used or seen used that I like for monitoring for understanding. The first one is a numbers 1 through 5 check, and that's when you would ask the classroom to hold up numbers 1 through 5, depending on how well they understand the material. I really like this method because it allows students to give more of a range on how they understand the material. When you just do like a thumbs up or thumbs down, or do you understand it or do you not, some students might feel embarrassed about saying they don't understand it, especially if it's like after a whole day of teaching and they still understand it, they might just lie and say they do. The nice thing about this method is it kind of gives people a chance to say, there's one thing I don't really understand, or I understand the basics but not much, or I really don't get anything. And it also, it's with numbers, it looks pretty similar across the room, so you're not going to stand out too much if you hold up a 1, whereas opposed to, thumbs up or thumbs down, you might feel embarrassed if you're the only thumbs down in the entire class. So I really like that method insofar as checking for how well people understand a certain concept. The next one is out the door slips, and that's when you would write something down on a slip of paper as your ticket out of the door at the end of a day. I think a really good way to do it is to ask the students to write one thing they learned and then one thing they want to learn more about or didn't understand. And that allows for you to check sort of 2 things. One, is what they learned accurate? And 2, what are the things that they didn't understand, or what are the things they want to learn more about? And you can kind of synthesize that information. You also have the benefit of students being able to remain anonymous for that. If they just hand it to you as they walk out the door, you will ensure that everyone will turn one in, but everyone can leave their name out of it, so they won't have to feel embarrassed about not understanding something, which could often be a problem. Next, what I have is creating a list of themes. And this would just be when you, at the end of the class, or at the end of a unit, ask the class to come up with a list of themes about the overall unit. And those themes can either be a word or they can be a sentence. And you can just have people shout out themes and make a whole list. And if there's a theme that maybe somebody kind of posits but doesn't completely understand, then that's can be a key that you should revisit that section. Or you can kind of prod students, if they throw out a word and you kind of prod them a little more and it's clear they don't know too much more than just the word, then that's, again, another key indicator to revisit that particular topic. The next one is a think, pair, share approach. This one's probably a little more common, but I'm still going to talk a little bit about sort of my takeaways on it. And for those who don't know, the think, pair, share is when you would have students think for a few minutes about whatever question you ask or concept you ask them about, and then share with a partner, and then maybe even share with the class after that. I really like this approach because it kind of makes every student have to talk. If you just have them in partners, both students kind of have to speak, and you can walk around and make sure that's happening. And that'll quickly kind of give you an indication of when students aren't getting it. And if they aren't getting it, another benefit of this approach is that you can have, if there's a student in a group, in a pair, who doesn't get it, and there's another student who does, the student who does can kind of help the student who doesn't get it get a little more familiar with whatever the concept is. And then, of course, you can later, after they discuss, they can share with the class, in which case you can determine if whether they're sharing, it seems like they got, or if they didn't. The last one I have is a 1-paragraph summary. This one's a little more boring, but can sometimes be more helpful for really complex topics. The ones that have kind of a lot of facets to it, and it's not easy to just ask one question. The nice thing about 1-paragraph summary is you can kind of see what the main thing the students sort of took away from that lesson. Because maybe they did learn something, but they didn't quite learn what you wanted them to. And a 1-paragraph summary can kind of reflect that. If a bunch of students didn't touch on kind of your main point, then that could be an indication that maybe you didn't do quite as good a job emphasizing that part, and you can go back there and revisit that. So those are just 5 quick tips for monitoring for understanding. I think a lot of those can be superior to just giving a quiz or a test. Obviously, there is a time and a place to give exams, and I don't think that's, a bad thing, but I think exams should be, big deals, and they shouldn't, you shouldn't be giving students quizzes every other day to try and determine if they understand the material, when there's a lot of better ways to sort of do that. So, thanks.